this is my February reading journal and welcome to Lunar Bird Book Club. Hi, so today is the 6th of February. It has been ages since I last did a car update, but I'm about to pick all up, so here's a good chance to tell you about some books. So firstly, I have finished one book so far this month, and that is The Winter Spirits, Ghostly Tales for Frosty Nights. It's a short story collection of 12 ghost stories set in winter and around Christmas. I'm trying to read a few winter books before winter officially ends. So before the end of this month, I want to read 3 winter-themed books to get them off my TBR so I don't have to wait until next winter to read them. This was a lot of fun. So it's 12 ghost stories, and I would say they are very strong ghost stories. A couple that really stood out to me is there's one at the end about the Krampus. That was really fun. That was called The Carols of Bells and Chains. Inferno was a lot of fun too. There's one story in here about a cat-like creature who appears whenever somebody is lying or being deceitful. That was really cool. There was one called The Old Play, where you knew from part way in where it was going and how it was going to end, but it was still so tense and creepy, and it was about a story of like inevitable doom, and that was really good fun to read. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. A really solid, good short story collection. It doesn't take itself too seriously, full of just really fun, punchy ghost Christmas stories. And also, I don't know if this was intentional, but there was a few images and themes that kind of occurred in a few of these. Now, I know it's set at Christmas, so that's not so unusual, but about 3 or 4 of the stories included like the present of a clementine studded with cloves, which I know is like a traditional Christmas gift, but it was interesting how that was it was like a repeated motif throughout the short stories that kind of helped tie them together a little bit. I don't know if that was an intentional thing or it just circumstance or coincidence, but that was quite cool. It was quite cool to see that some of these kind of nodded towards one another, which I think was really fun in a collection. So I finished that, and I am now currently reading The Dead of Winter by Nicola Upson. I'm only like 2 or 3 chapters into it. It's going to be a murder mystery set at Christmas at St Michael's Mount in Cornwall. This book has been on my TBR the longest out of any of the books that I own, because I bought it last June. So I am looking forward to finishing it, well, to reading it and finishing it and, you know, having it ticked off. I believe now that I'm a couple of chapters in, I can see that this is actually part of a detective series. I don't think it's going to affect my enjoyment of the reading so much. I don't feel like I've missed out on anything, but I can tell that this detective has solved crimes in previous books, and that's fine. So far, I know that it's set just on the verge of World War II. At the castle in St Michael's Mount, they are hosting a Christmas kind of like gala, and people can donate a lot of money to go and be part of it, and the money's going to go to like helping Jewish refugees from Germany. But controversially, one of the people going to this gala is a German actress who has fled to England to kind of avoid the Nazis. So so far she seems like a very good egg, but she's facing some hostility for being, you know, German and a famous actress. And that's about as far into it as I've got. It starts, there's a very grisly prologue about a detective finding a horrible murder scene in 1920. That was very grisly, but the next few chapters after it have just been like setting the scene. So yeah, I'm enjoying this so far, and I feel like my reading month has gotten off to a good start. Hello, it's now the 16th of February, and I thought I'd jump on and give you a quick update on my reading. Last time I spoke to you, I was just starting The Dead of Winter. I unfortunately got a few more chapters into this and realised I wasn't really enjoying it, so I skipped to the end to see if the reveal of the murder was interesting, and it kind of wasn't for me. So I didn't finish it. I think the big thing that put me off this early on is the very first on-screen murder that happened kind of came out of nowhere. So 2 women were talking to one another, and one was kind of sharing her upset at that her daughter had joined a nunnery, and was disappointed over where her daughter's life was going, and her friend was quite sympathetic to that and was trying to like console her, but the mother was so angry that she just suddenly bashed her friend over the head with a wise man figurine from the church's nativity set and killed her. And that was the first death that happened, and it's quite early on in the book, so I felt like, well, I already know who the murderer is, and it felt really dumb. So yeah, I just didn't finish the book. I read the last chapter to see if anything more interesting was going to turn up. So yeah, a little bit disappointing because the cover is just so beautiful. I really wanted to love this one, but I did not, so sorry. Then I read Nature Tales for Winter Nights. This is my last winter-themed book that I wanted to get read before the end of March. I did read most of this. So this is an anthology of winter-inspired writing. There's a mixture of essays in here, extracts from fiction, a couple of poems, quite a varied source of things. And I don't know if I'm just in a reading, not a reading slump, maybe a reading grump. This also made me feel quite cross and grumpy. I have a suspicion that although this cover is really beautiful, I have a suspicion that this was tried to be done on the cheap, and that a lot of the extracts were chosen because they are probably already in the public domain. Because there's quite a few old pieces of writing in here that I imagine are in the public domain, so that it's cheaper to reproduce, because some of the extracts in here just didn't go anywhere. So there's lots of descriptive writing about winter scenes, but for extracts from fiction or even from essays, you kind of need a bit of punch to them. Something still needs to happen in the extract for it to be interesting. It can't just be pretty writing. But this was, I just found it quite boring. So there was a couple of passages that I did enjoy in here, but when I got to about the halfway mark, I did just start skim reading, because time is precious and I wanted to read the bits that mattered to me. So one thing that actually stood out was a letter from the Netherlands by Vincent van Gogh. And that made me laugh because like this letter actually really intriguing. Vincent goes on a winter walk and kind of has some questions about his own depression, and he kind of puts those questions to his brother in a really beautiful and poetic way. So that was quite fascinating, and ironically has made me a bit curious to read the complete letters of Vincent van Gogh, which is a book that Rachel's been reading for like the last 2 years, and is famously struggling to get through it, but now I'm intrigued by it. Maybe I'll want to borrow it when she's done. And then the other piece in here that I felt was like a standout one was called Yuletide by Marcel Farrell. Or Marcel Farrell, I'm not quite sure how you say that name. And this is a really short passage about reflecting on Yuletide and her garden. And she talks about how she's discovering that she's dreaming about her garden. She's clearly got a new garden and she's planted it all year and worked on it all year, and at winter the garden's kind of gone to sleep, it's gone to bed, but she's still dreaming about her garden, what her garden's going to produce. And at the very end it says, "I am tired. What a dream it would be to rest until the first signs of spring. I take my cue from the garden, die back where I can, keep growing where I must. I love my dreams of the garden. It grows within me now, shows itself, even when I am not in it. There is such comfort in being so rooted. I wonder if the garden dreams now of me." And as somebody who also loves the garden and loves her garden, that spoke to me. So there were a couple of standout entries in here, but a lot of this also just wasn't that interesting to me, which was a shame. So yes, I've kind of had a disappointing reading month so far. However, I feel like it's all going to turn around because now I am reading The Housekeeper and the Professor, which was a book I picked up in a little free library last summer. I've only just started reading it and I'm over the halfway mark in it now, and I'm so enjoying this. This had me hooked from chapter 1, and this is well written, and there are characters who I am intrigued by, and even though the plot is gentle and slow and it's not dramatic at all, I'm loving the experience of reading this book. So The Housekeeper and the Professor is about a housekeeper who looks after a reclusive professor who lives on this little cottage in the grounds of his sister-in-law's estate. And the professor had a car accident like 15 years ago, and since then his his short-term memory lasts for only 80 minutes at a time, and then he forgets. So the housekeeper has a strange relationship with him where every day she turns up to look after him, he doesn't really remember who she is. Yet despite that, there's this friendship growing, and this old professor is also very protective and charming and warm towards her son. So it's like the housekeeper, the son, and this professor are forming this kind of introvert family. And the thing that they're connecting over the most is numbers, because this professor was a professor of mathematics. And so talking about numbers is his like gateway into conversations and connecting with people, because he can remember everything there is to know about numbers. He just can't remember day-to-day details. And the housekeeper and the son are becoming fascinated too by the world of numbers. And so far this is a beautiful tale of friendship among introverts, and I'm really, really enjoying it. It is Monday the 17th of February, and I have just finished The Housekeeper and the Professor. I am glad to report that although there's a little bit of sadness towards the end, it has not broken my heart. So that's a bit of a relief, because there were times in this where it felt like it was building up to something very, very tragic. But we did not go into the realm of tragedy. There was some bittersweet, there's some sadness, there's a little bit of grief, but not overwhelming. The main thing you take away from this book is just the story of a beautiful and lasting friendship. It's so gentle and so sweet that it's hard to say why it's so gripping and why I've read through this so quickly, except that it's just very beautiful. And I really, really enjoyed it. I think this is the kind of book that more people should read, because it would do good. It would do good. It does our souls good, I think, to read pleasant books about just sweet love and connection. And that's what this is. And I'm really, really glad that I read it. And I feel like it's been quite a soothing read. And it's picked my February up. Editing Cathy here to just tell you that if I had realised how many plant pots were blown about my garden in the background of the shot you're about to see, I would have tidied them up first, but I didn't notice it. And yes, there are plant pots blown about my garden, and I really need to tidy them up, so enjoy that in the clip you are about to see. Hello, so today is the 1st of March, which means February ran away before I managed to film any more clips for this month. But here's what happened with my reading. I moved on and started Remarkably Bright Creatures, which is a book that's been on my wish list for quite a long time, because I've heard many positive things about this book and I was really excited to read it. Funnily enough, again, this is about a cleaner who cleans in an aquarium where there is a very clever octopus who escapes from his tank every night. The octopus is called Marcellus, and he gets into mischief, and he befriends the cleaner and helps the cleaner connect with a long lost relative, and kind of tries to solve the mystery of her son's disappearance. This had a lot of things in it that I normally love: small town, family, mystery, an intelligent animal. And yet, I'm really sorry to say, I found this book so boring. None of it really connected for me. And again, I don't know if this is a me problem or a book problem, but after the wonderful The Housekeeper and the Professor, this sent me right back into my reading grump. It has taken me a long time to kind of get through this book, and in the end, because I kind of did want to know what happened, I kind of skim read it to the end. Nothing really surprising happened in it, and it was just a bit dull. And I feel again that the world of book talk and bookstagram and every book review out there conned me into believing that I was going to really love this book, and I didn't. I hope if you read it you enjoy it, but for me, a bit dull, and that was really frustrating. So yeah, this has put me back in my reading grump. I have not been doing a lot of reading for the rest of February because, you know, I just couldn't face coming back to this, so I kept playing games on my phone instead. So it's not been a great reading month, has February. I've kind of had more misses than hits, if I kind of hold them up now. Like, Winter Spirits, fine, good. Dead of Winter, I gave up on. Nature Tales for Winter Nights, kind of gave up on, skim read to the end. Housekeeper and the Professor, loved. Remarkably Bright Creatures, hated. So I only had like one hit this month, and the rest has been like a lot. Oh, Winter Spirits was alright. Everything else struggled to get through. So not a great reading month. Kind of has left me a bit grumpy, and I'm really hoping things pick up for March. In March, I think Rachel will be giving me another book to read. I hope she will. I'm gonna nag her. Ralph Fans versus First Time Reader collection. So if Rachel can recommend me a book that she's really loved, maybe that way I'll have a good reading month. And I have already started the Fables Encyclopedia, which I've had since October and have only just started to read. So this goes along with the Fable comic book series, and it's literally an A to Z guide of all the characters that are in Fables, and I'm only up to C so far in there. I can't open it without losing my bookmark, so can't really show you the inside. So I'm only up to the C named characters, but what I'm really loving about it is for each character, it is telling me a little bit about the folklore fairy tale that inspired the Fable version of it. So it tells you a bit about the original folklore, and then it tells you about how that is interpreted in the Fables universe. So it's really interesting, not just because it's given me a reminder of all my lovely favourite Fables characters, but it's got lots of little snippets of folklore in bite-sized chunks, which I feel like I really need right now after having quite a bad reading month. Reading something I can dip in and out of that is easy to get into and I can put down and pick up and it's all fine. This is what I need right now. So I think this is going to start off March better than February, and I'm also hoping that Rachel will give me a book to read. So yeah, that is my reading wrap up for this month. Housekeeper and the Professor was a standout book. I'm really glad I read this one. Maybe this makes the other books worth it, but I am hoping better for next month. I hope you've had a better and happier and more cheerful reading month than I have. Rachel's reading wrap up will come out on Friday, so keep an eye out for that. Thank you so much for watching this video, and we'll see you next time. Bye! I read the last 2 chapters to see if the reveal of the murderer was interesting, and it kind of wasn't.